All right, my friends, welcome once again to the next episode in the Red Delta Project podcast, where we take a fundamental approach to fitness to give you more power, control, and freedom over your diet and exercise habits. As always, I'm Matt Schifferly, and this week's episode is brought to you by the good folks over at NOSC Suspension Strap Training. You know, it's not every day that you find something that's both more affordable than the competition and a better quality design and constructed product. And that's exactly what NOS is. You can see them on the pull-up bar behind me there, and that's why I always endorse them wholeheartedly. You can find reviews to their entire range of products on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel, including the RT17, the ever portable home trainer, and the versatile twin trainer as well. So just searching NOSSK on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel, and you'll come up with all those reviews, or simply click the link below in the description to access their full catalog. So today's topic is one that I get questions on a lot, and I cover it many times. But the reason why I'm still doing this is because there seems to be a lot of confusion over this fact of, can you build muscle and burn or lose body fat at the same time? And there's a lot of debate out there, and there's a lot of opinions and stuff like that. But like a lot of things in our fitness culture, we are way overthinking this one. And the reason that we often get confused is because, again, we often think of things as a method-based approach. The method-based approach is what most people do when it comes to fitness. But of course, here at RDP, we take a fundamental approach, which recognizes the actual processes of both mother and human nature that are responsible for your results. So when we're looking at this question, what we have to recognize is that those processes that are responsible for how much muscle you have, how much body fat you have, those processes are ever going. They've been ongoing since the day you were born, and they will continue until the day you leave our great big ball called the Earth. And in regards to that, not only is it possible to both build and burn at the same time, you're already doing it. You're always doing it. And it's not something you have to turn on or turn off, because from a fat loss perspective, you're always expending calories. If you're alive, you are expending calories, and some of those calories are coming from your fat stores all the time. This is not something that's only happening in certain circumstances, under certain dietary conditions, or when you're doing certain exercises. Everybody burns fat 100% of the time. There's no exceptions to that, except for potentially when you're going super, super high intensity of levels of exercise, like sprinting up a hill away from a bear while carrying your wounded buddy on your shoulders, kind of thing. But even in that circumstance, even if it's 100% carbohydrate burn, it's a very short period of time, not nearly enough of something to worry about. So from that whole am I burning fat thing, the answer is yes, always yes. You're always burning fat. Now on the muscle side of things, same thing can be said there. Protein synthesis is always kind of ongoing. You're always anabolic to some degree, because your muscles are always going through the process of both catabolism and anabolism through the process continuously. So if we're always burning and we're always building, how come some people are like, well, how come I'm always the same? I'm not getting bigger, I'm not getting leaner. And of course, that's because of the other half of the process. Not only are you always burning fat, you're also always storing it. Again, regardless of your circumstances. I don't care what diet you're following. I don't care what kind of lifestyle you have. You could be the biggest slug on the couch or a huge athletic endurance aficionado. Every day, you're going to store fat. You're always going to store fat no matter what. Same thing with catabolism. You're always going to be breaking down muscle. Your muscles are always going through this constant phase of catabolism, breaking down, getting rid of old cells and stuff, damage and repair. It's always ongoing. So in our perception, we often think that nothing's happening. The weight on the scale is the same. Our clothes are always fitting the same. We look the same in the mirror. If I look the same, that means nothing's happening, which is completely untrue. That process is always ongoing, but your current condition of how much fat you have, how much body fat, how much muscle you have, that's due to, of course, the balance between those two processes. You're always burning fat. You're always storing fat. The amount of fat on your body isn't determined by whether or not you're burning or whether or not you're storing. It's whether or not you're burning relative to the rate at which you're storing. Both of them are always happening. Same thing with muscle. You're always anabolic, you're always going through protein synthesis and building muscle. You're always catabolic. But the amount of muscle you have and whether or not there's a change in that amount of muscle depends on the ratio between those two things. So here's the big takeaway that we want to have. When we set ourselves up to alter that process enough to say, I want to build more muscle or I want to lose weight and stuff like that, that's where we sometimes kind of jeer off the tracks a little bit. And we think, okay, well, if I want to build, that means I need to overeat. I need to be in a calorie surplus. And if I want to lose body fat, that means I need to be in a calorie deficit and undereat. So on the surface, it seems that these two are on opposition to each other. But hold the phone there. Once again, these are ideas and thoughts that come from a method-based approach to fitness, which isn't entirely wrong, but it's kind of like going into a funhouse, warped mirrors. You're seeing a reflection of what's really there, but it's all warped and distorted and out of focus. So it's not an accurate depiction of what's really going on. And what we're going to do is by getting an accurate depiction of how do you actually burn fat and build muscle, that's going to give us that clarity we need. So when it comes to burning, getting rid of body fat, there's the idea of, well, I need to undereat. Sort of. Remember, it's not about how much, what your diet is. It's not about your workout either. It's whether or not you've got that ratio. So we can certainly, in fact, eat less. That's going to help you burn fat, but you can also increase calorie expenditure. It's certainly possible, sometimes a little harder, but entirely possible to get leaner, not by touching your diet at all, but by just working it off. I've done it. Lots of people have done it. It is possible. You'll hear people like, oh, it's impossible. You know, you do like 8 hours of exercise and you put it back by eating one donut or something crazy. And it's like, that's getting way blown out of proportion. Again, it's all warped and distorted from reality. So you certainly can do it through physical activity, like, oh, I don't know, strength training. Now, when it comes to building muscle, the process of anabolic and catabolic is not governed by food. Okay? There isn't a damn thing you can eat that will tell your muscles to get bigger. That stimulus that says, I need to get bigger, biceps or whatever, simply is impossible to come from food. If it was, that'd be great. I really wish it was, because then you just say, eat this protein or eat this supplement or eat this kind of food and you're good. But that's not at all the case, because muscle is functional tissue. Its adaptive process happens due to the functional demand we place upon it. In other words, what do we need the muscle to do? And the only way you can make your muscles get bigger is to place functional demand on them through that physical activity, usually through strength training of some sort, placing some sort of resistance against the body. And this could be anything. It really doesn't matter what it is. Free weights, machines, bands, isometrics, calisthenics, lifting logs in the forest, you know, whatever you want. All you need to do is say, hey, muscle, I need you to work harder than you usually are. That's what drives that stimulus. Now, the question a lot of people will say, well, if I don't eat enough, can that still happen? To a degree. Keep in mind that the body usually treats caloric balance kind of like financial balance on a ledger for like your household. Now, if you're coming to the table and you're like, okay, I'm going to cut back on some calories here, I always recommend people start off with what I call luxury calories. And luxury calories are the food sources that are providing calories into your diet that are influencing your caloric process, but they don't really do anything for you. The empty calories, so to speak, right? These are the things that a lot of times they come from liquid sources, sodas, alcohol, even to a large degree, things like smoothies and stuff like that play a big role in this. Overeating is another source where it's like, okay, I've just eaten this sandwich, feeling very good. And then someone says, oh, why don't you eat the second half? Why not? And you just force it down, even though you're more than satisfied, and you kind of waddle out of the restaurant. You're like, oh, I can't believe I ate the whole thing. So in that regard, like luxury calories, they can be from the exact same food that was before. The first half of the sandwich was great, wonderful, healthy, and not contributing to your fat stores because it was keeping you in calorie balance. But you just overate by eating the other half of the sandwich. So overeating is another big source of things right there. And then, of course, also just sneaky, snacky stuff that we just eat throughout the day, the candy jar at work, or you come home and you're making dinner and you have a chips and salsa kind of thing. Now, the thing with luxury calories is not only are they contributing potentially to a caloric overeating surplus, but they do almost nothing whatsoever for your muscle balance as well. They do almost nothing at all to contribute potentially. Even the people like, you got to eat big to get big, they do almost nothing. I guarantee you, if you're drinking 5 sodas a day and you get rid of those 5 sodas, it will have no detrimental impact whatsoever on your ability to build muscle. But you can potentially cut back hundreds, maybe even over 1,000 calories a day or every 2 days from that calorie balance. So I would always say, if you're looking to get rid of body fat, go for those quote unquote luxury calories first. They have almost no bearing on your muscle and strength, but they're most certainly almost contributing to your body fat levels. So you're cutting back there. What you don't want to do is cut back on some of the calories that are really sustaining your body. So again, if you're looking to save money, you're like, well, I don't need to go to the movies every day, and I don't need these luxuries and stuff. You cut back on those things. But if you keep cutting back on your financial expenditures enough, eventually you're like, I don't need heat. I don't need gas in my car. I can walk everywhere. You start cutting back on things that go from luxuries to more of an essential quality. And it's the same exact thing with calories and food sources. When people sometimes they start eating less, they're cutting back on luxury calories. They're like, I feel great. And they keep cutting back. And eventually they start cutting back on the things that are sustaining their body. So that can lead to more fat loss. But when it comes to building muscle, keep in mind that your body will prioritize most any other thing to keep you healthy and well as possible over building muscle. So if it feels like, boy, I'm barely getting enough calories to fuel my immune system and to be healthy and to keep my metabolic function going, it's going to say, let's not build muscle just yet. We got other things to fry here. We got bigger things to take care of. So oftentimes when people say, oh, you got to eat big to get big, or you make sure you got to eat a lot in order to build muscle, what that usually means isn't so much you need to be in a surplus, but make sure you're getting your basic needs met first, and then you can have a little bit more in the tank to go for the quote luxury of building muscle. So by all means, cut back on what you're eating, but make sure it's primarily from that luxury calorie source. That's not going to have any impact on your ability to build muscle, but it will certainly help you burn fat. At the same time, you're increasing your caloric demand through the physical activity and exercise that's stimulating that muscle growth, further fueling a potential calorie deficit. So you're burning even more calories and more fat to both do the workout and to recover from the workout to potentially build that muscle. So the bottom line here is that building muscle and burning off body fat seemingly are in opposition to each other, but they're completely soulmates. The more you do of one, the easier it's going to be to do the other. You build muscle, it's going to be a lot easier to burn more calories in physical activity. You're going to be able to run and walk and hike and lift and do everything else longer, harder, and faster to burn calories. So the more muscle you have, the easier it is to burn off extra calories and fat. Plus, the things that you're doing to cut back on body fat from luxury calories is only going to force you to focus on eating your diet primarily of really good quality, satisfying food sources, fruits, vegetables, quality protein sources, plant or animal based, doesn't really matter. Make your diet more about those, and that's going to help your recovery and fuel your ability to have the anabolic process go a little bit faster, therefore building muscle. So to basically sum up, not only is building and burning possible, you're already doing it to some degree and will always do it. We just got to tip the scales just a little bit in order to enhance that process of anabolic process, so that you're building at a faster rate than you're breaking down. And that's going to come primarily from exercise and eating really good food, right? And at the same time, you don't want to be overeating and eating too much like empty calories, if you will, and focusing on being very good with your diet. And that's going to focus on foods that are going to help you build muscle while also decreasing the foods that are not going to contribute too much of a caloric surplus and make it harder to burn off excess body fat. So it's a very much a win-win sort of thing. You don't need to choose. And oftentimes people get caught in the trap of the bulk and cut cycle of thinking they have to choose. So they're like, I'm going to bulk up, I'm going to build some muscle, and they start overeating, which of course packs on body fat like crazy because they think I've got to overeat in order to build muscle. No, you don't need to overeat. Nobody ever got any benefit from overeating. Yes, you may need to eat a little bit more, and that's perfectly fine because that's what always happens when you increase your physical activity or have an increase in calorie demand. You should eat to satisfy that demand, absolutely. But that doesn't mean you need to be in a surplus, that you need to overeat. At the same time, people are like, okay, time to cut or to slim down a lot, and they just drastically cut their calories. And not only are they cutting back on their luxury calories, but they cut back on the essential stuff that they need to recover and lift better and be more physically active. And as a result, that compromises their ability to build muscle. So that's why when you're kind of seesawing back and forth, you're like, I can go for one, but not the other. But when you have a more smarter approach, not only do you not have to choose between the two, you'll actually enhance them both at the same time. So hopefully that gives you something to think about. Take a swig of water here. All right, let's get to some questions here. Folks, thank you so much. Question time is right now. Let's see here. Hopefully I had some major tech issues. What else is new? Wi-Fi is lagging a bit. A couple of people saying my Wi-Fi is slow. Yeah, I know. I've been trying to resolve that for the past 3 hours. I don't know. I guess the tech gods are just not happy with me. But this is me and technology. I have random things just go wonky on me all the time. And nobody can answer anything. Like, I swear I could have Bill Gates in here and be like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, you've got demons in your computer. But anyway, let's get to some computers. SB coming on. Hey, Matt, how much do I have to care about my protein intake? I'm not into bodybuilding, but I want to put on some muscle and normally eat vegetables, rarely meat or beans. So protein, very important. Absolutely. We definitely want, and usually when people are either trying to build muscle or burn fat, you'll hear a lot of experts steer the conversation towards protein. And one of the biggest reasons for this is because very rarely is a protein source a source of luxury excessive calories. It's very hard to put on a lot of fat when you're eating a lot of protein. And that's just simply because protein is one of the most versatile nutrients out there. Your body uses protein for a million things. So when we consume caloric sources, whether or not we turn it into body fat and excessive fat depends not on what it is, but whether or not your body can use that food. Now, your body can certainly always use carbohydrates, fat, and protein. But there's a much bigger chance your body's going to use that protein. So and it's not just muscle building. I mean, there's a gazillion things we use amino acids for. It's like the major Swiss Army knife of the human body. So when you're increasing your protein intake, not only is that saying, great, protein, feed the muscles for anabolic process, but it's also a much bigger chance of we're probably going to use this beans and rice or potato or tofu, meant to say tofu, or pork or whatever. Chances are you're going to use it. The better chance you can use it, the less of a chance you're going to store it. So bottom line is protein, extremely important. I've never been one to count numbers. Counting like protein calories, protein grams and calories and stuff is just in my opinion, just a royal pain in the ass. It's just such a pain. It's so hard to do accurately. It's just one of those things that is not feasible for most people. So that's why I always say, try to get some protein at each meal. Protein at each meal, a good source of protein at each meal will probably take care of you. And if you're ever questioning, well, maybe I should get more, okay, double those sources. So if you have like 3 eggs in the morning, turn it into 5 or 6 or something, because ultimately we don't really need to know what the number is. We just need to know, is it more than normal? Is it more protein than I normally get? And then you can say, okay, am I looking better, feeling better? Am I recovering better? That sort of thing. So try to get protein at each meal as a good starting point and make it much more of a priority if you're like, I don't know if I'm getting enough protein stuff, because sometimes we can go several meals without much of a protein source, and then you can go from there. Let us see. Oh, very good one here. What is your opinion on cheat days where people have to restrict diet 6 days a week and then enjoy cheat foods on 1 day of the week? So it's a very good idea in theory, but I think it still is based on too much of a method-based approach which is all warped and distorted what we really need to do. Because the whole concept of like bad foods, evil, unclean foods, that's totally in our head. We made it up. It's completely a myth because all your body knows is, can I use it? It doesn't care what you eat. I could eat a candy bar or I could eat organic salmon. Your body doesn't know what food is. It only knows what nutrients are. Because every time you eat something, you go through this process called digestion. And what digestion basically is it takes food and just breaks it down into nutrients. It's like disassembling a Lego set. So by the time that candy bar or the salmon or whatever gets broken down, all carbohydrates just get broken down into monosaccharides, simple sugars and stuff, polysaccharides and monosaccharides. So it's like, great, glucose. It doesn't know if it has that glucose from a candy bar or rice or bread or whatever. It also is like, great, amino acids. It doesn't know if that was from peanuts in a Snickers bar or from organic salmon. So by the time that all gets down, it's like, can I use this? And that's the goal that we want to be looking for is, can I use this food? Can I use these nutrients? Because that's all the body really cares about. We think about food. The body thinks about nutrients. This is how nutrition actually works on a fundamental level. So when we're looking at cheat days and stuff, what we're doing is we're recognizing that because of our human nature, we don't like to deprive ourselves. An unhealthy diet is fundamentally one that is based on restriction and deprivation. And so a lot of dietary approaches are like restrict yourself, deprive yourself, restrict yourself, don't eat this, don't eat that, don't eat this much of this. And as a result, that builds stress up in the mind and the body and to the lifestyle to some degree. So over time, people have figured out, well, maybe that's not the best way to approach this sort of thing. Maybe we need these periods where we can take off the pressure cooker, the steam a little bit, and allow you to have some of these quote unquote bad foods, because that way you don't have these huge swings in stress and you binge and purge and binge and purge. And cheat days are one of the ways we do that. But it doesn't have to be a cheat day. Like I eat chocolate every day or ice cream or sometimes both, right? My latest thing has been these Hershey's miniatures, right? Go in the freezer, I get a couple little pieces of chocolate and I'm good. I do that almost every single day because I'm not willing to wait for a cheat day. I don't want to deprive myself all week and then overeat on junk food in a single day because that feels like crap too, right? So it's this swinging thing back and forth. And some people do well with it. I don't. I'd much rather just eat something. I'd rather have some ice cream or some chocolate or a slice of pizza every once in a while whenever I feel like it. And I'm fine as long as I just don't overdo it. And so it's one of those things of depends on for what's best for some people. But I think a lot of people like myself, it's like a little bit of something each day. You don't need cheat days anymore. You don't have to eat like crap for an entire 24 hours or something like that, or whatever, that even a full meal, and then be like, well, I want something, but I can't do it until Tuesday. Basing things off of the days of the week is not the most practical approach to actually do what your body, mind, and lifestyle needs. Dave, hey Matt, how would you build muscle if you're at the bottom range of testosterone levels, but still in the normal range? Oh, that's good. So as long as your T levels are in the normal range-ish, and I mean, it's, everybody uses different ranges too. You talk to one doctor and they're like, that level is too low. You talk to another doctor, that one's too high, kind of thing. So as long as you're, look at your performance first and foremost. So make sure you're getting plenty of sleep and getting plenty of good food and managing stress first and foremost. To make sure that's not impacting your testosterone levels too much. And from there, I mean, it's just keep on kicking butt. I mean, testosterone is extremely important for building muscle, but it's not the be all end all kind of thing. There are plenty of people out there who have a pretty high testosterone level who struggle to build muscle. And there are other people. I knew a bodybuilder, for Christ's sake. He was huge and he went and got tested. He had low testosterone levels. And I was like, well, is it because of steroids or something? He was like, no, I was never on juice. I never knew it. And this is kind of one of those weird things that science keeps finding too, where once we mapped the human genome, we started to figure out these genes. It was like, oh, this is the gene for like faster runners. Like anyone who has this gene or this gene expression, they're going to be a world-class runner. And this person, if they don't, they don't. And then they would go test Olympic athletes and they're like, 2/3 of Olympic athletes genetically should be terrible runners. So it's like, all right, back to the drawing board. We thought we were sure what was in control of what made someone a good runner or build muscle. And that's unfortunately the case with muscle, especially, is every time we think we've isolated, it's like, this is what's responsible for muscle. People who build muscle have X, and if you don't have X, you won't build muscle. And then they test it out, and it's like, never mind. We thought it was because of muscle protein breakdown. No, it wasn't entirely that. Oh, we thought it was the sharp, acute bout of hormone response due to heavy training. No, it wasn't that either. We're still trying to figure this out. So I would say for the most part, don't worry about it. Train hard, train heavy, get some sleep, get some good food, treat yourself well, and and building muscle with that is going to be the same as anyone else. Oh, here's a good one here. Joshua coming on. Your thoughts on time under tension reps, half reps as opposed to full lockout reps, blah, 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 blah. Okay, very good. So here's the thing about time under tension. It's a meaningless term, largely because you ask a lot of people what it means and you'll get 100 different definitions. So fundamentally, time, tension, those are the only two variables you have to work with when it comes to strengthening a muscle. How much tension is in the muscle? How long is it there for? And if we want to make a muscle bigger and stronger, we've got to progress both to some degree at some point. How hard are you working? How long are you working? And over time, it's like, now I can work my muscle both longer and harder kind of thing. So all of these strategies, slower, half rep, every workout strategy, exercise strategy, rep strategy, everything you'll ever come across is just some way to manipulate how much tension is in the muscle, how long is it there for. That's it. So this is a good way. This is what fundamental approach does for you, is it gives you a filter to filter all the BS that's out there in fitness and be like, what is it really making me do? 99.9% of the time, every weight loss diet is just getting you to eat less. Every workout strategy is just getting your muscle to work harder in some way, shape, or form, harder or longer. So when you're going with half reps, you're maybe going into that zone where there's the more tension on the muscle. So it's hitting the muscle harder for a little bit longer. If you're doing this tool versus speed versus how long, the rep and tempo, you're just manipulating those two things, time and tension. Time and tension. Time under tension is all we've got. So when you're looking at all these things, half reps and stuff like that, just do it and be like, am I working harder with that? Am I working at roughly the same level, but for a longer period of time? And then you just simply be, well, is that more than I had before? If it's more, great, good. You're probably going to get some results from that. Awesome. But most of the time, it's not really going to do anything. It's not going to change anything than what you're doing. I'm already working my muscle pretty hard for a few hard sets. What if you change it this way? Still working muscle pretty hard for a few hard sets. Like it's just a different flavor, or, you went from a brown M&M to a red M&M, it doesn't taste anything. It doesn't do anything different. Again, your body's like, great, glucose. What color M&M did it come from? I don't know. I don't care. Same thing with your muscle. Are you doing half reps? Are you doing full reps? Are you doing speed? It's like, I don't know. I just got to work this hard for this amount of time. That's the bottom line. So a lot of times, and again, this is the method-based approach. Method-based approach will tell you that how you work out and what your diet looks like is what's responsible for your results. That it is important, but it's not responsible for your results. It's what's influencing the process that's responsible for your results. S. Lee, do you need overhead presses to build big shoulders? I can't do them because I can't talk today. Cubital tunnel syndrome, a nerve issue in the elbow. Well, I mean, if you can't do it, can't do it. It's that simple. But absolutely, of course, for sure, there are tons of strength coaches out there and bodybuilders I've run into who are like, no overhead presses. Hell, I've even known several of them who are like, no direct shoulder work at all, because the theory is there's no shoulder, your shoulders are working in everything you're doing anyway. That was a big thing in the 90s for a lot of bodybuilders. It's one of the main reasons why in my grind style calisthenics program, I have almost no handstands or direct shoulder work, largely because for a lot of people, it's completely unnecessary. And it's just kind of a little bit harder for a lot of people to do. The whole point of grind style calisthenics is what are the easiest exercises to work the muscles really, really hard. And in calisthenics, that's not handstands, because a lot of people have trouble being upside down with stability and everything like that. Proper alignment is a big thing. Push and pull, man. If you got that, there you go. Just make sure that you do have good tension control in your shoulders. Maybe practice some isometrics, like, pressing your hands against a doorway kind of thing from time to time, or pulling here, or I'm pulling my hands apart from behind my back. If you have that, that's going to ensure that your shoulders are working as much as possible with push and pull. And there's probably going to be about the same result as if you had overhead presses. So have fun with that. Hey, Matt, how do we tell a friend or relative that we love very much that the path they are taking in his diet is a disaster without taking offense? Well, to be perfectly honest there, Mariano, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. It's the whole lead a horse to water kind of thing. Here's the thing is, at the end of the day, your fitness is about you and only you. Most people don't care at all. If you build muscle or put on 10 pounds of body fat, no one's going to really care. Very few people are ever going to appreciate it. Even those who are close to you may not really, really care too much. So if you're starting to be like, oh, Ma, I love you, but maybe, a pepperoni pizza for lunch every day isn't the best thing, or Dad, I think you're drinking too much kind of thing. Once you voice these concerns, it's always fine to voice it up and just see how receptive they are to it. Because you never know. You could be like, I think we should have, you should eat more vegetables. And they could be like, oh, I know, I just don't know what to do about it and stuff. They could be totally open to it. And you'd be like, well, here's an idea. And then you just go down the path. But if someone is totally like, come at me, like, oh, it'll be a cold day in hell when I eat a salad kind of thing, let it drop, leave it. Like, do not push the issue. It is not worth the fighting and the bickering that will come between you two for that, because you're not going to make any headway whatsoever. You can't convince anybody anything. No matter what you teach them, you could leave books lying around and stuff like that. It's a complete waste of time and a waste of your energy. So the best thing you can do is lead by example, as I always say. Be a strong example for them, especially those you love, your parents and stuff. They were an example for you when you were growing up. So be an example for them now. And you don't have to be very overly open about it or anything. Just be like, oh, God, I just feel so good today. Or, maybe this used to happen with my dad sometimes. Like, oh, geez, my back is so stiff. And I was like, I used to, have back issues, but boy, I'm glad I got rid of those. And just leave it at that. And if you lead by example, they're going to start to notice and let them come and ask you for advice. And when they do, give them very simple stuff. Don't try and change their whole lifestyle around kind of thing. And wait for them to be open to it. Because this is the sort of thing we learn in retail when I worked retail years ago. It's impossible to sell someone a mountain bike if they don't want to buy a mountain bike. So if they come in and they're like, I want to buy these gloves. And you're like, well, how about a new mountain bike? No, you can't convince anybody of anything. Wait for them to come to you and be like, I'm thinking of getting a mountain bike. I think I'll, lose a little belly fat. I think I want to get a little bit stronger. Now you're rocking and rolling. And they're going to come to that because they watch how much benefit you're getting from it. All right, I'm going to try and keep these answers a little shorter. I know I'm getting a little long-winded here, folks. I am very talkative today. It's been a week. Oh, boy. Matt, you mentioned how you out-train a bad diet in your videos. Yep, I still do it every single day. I want to know if I'm doing cardio and strength training regularly, but much on a brownie or cookie. Am I out training? No. So this is the game we play, right? It's like I'm on the treadmill and the treadmill says I burn like 500 calories. And you go to the wrapper and it's like, okay, 450 calories in this. So that means I can eat this much of a brownie. And don't do this. This is largely just a complete cluster in your mind and everything, because yes, you burn 500 calories on the treadmill, but how much would you have burned anyway? And how accurate is that? And you're doing the beautiful mind calculations in your brain and stuff. Here's the thing is, remember, we base our decisions off of modifications from stability. So you want to eat brownies? Great, go for it. Have some brownies. Have a brownie every other day. Get a box of brownies, like 6 brownies, and see if you last it the week and stuff. So have an amount, like I have the bag of the Hershey's miniatures I talk about, and I buy one of those like every 2 weeks. And just eat it as you want, whatever, right? Have a brownie a day, have half a brownie a day, whatever kind of thing. And notice if you have any detrimental effects. If you're like, oh, it's starting to get a little softer and stuff, okay, so you cut that and down. If I'm eating a brownie a day and I'm noticing it's not so great, half a brownie a day, or, a brownie every couple of days or something like that. Changes we make are only valid when we compare it to what is normal. Okay. Is it normal to eat a brownie a day? Okay, change that up. And then you have something to compare it to. You have the control. But when you're coming to things like, okay, can I have a brownie today? Can I have some ice cream or not? I don't know. I ran into, you have no basis to make a decision on. Nothing to make an informed decision because you don't know. Like, can you eat a brownie today? I have no idea. So we have to figure this one out kind of a little bit by experience. Like, sure, have the brownie, see what happens. Sometimes having a little bit more, it's like, dude, like for me in ice cream, like I started to add more ice cream in my diet and things were great. Like I was leaner, I was performing better. I wasn't as prone to like junk food swings on the weekend and everything. It was great. Like, okay, I'm going through a pint of Ben & Jerry's about once every 10 days or so is actually beneficial for me. And that's what we base our things off of, not how much did I exercise and stuff like that. It's just a case of, are you with this in your diet, are you having a detrimental effect or not? And if not, there you go. There's your answer. Hey, man, when doing pull-ups, I always get a way better connection with my back when I stop at the end of each rep, but my feet on the ground and reset my form. Am I miss out doing them like this? No, I don't think so much, Joe. I think what's going on is you're setting your shoulders when your feet are on the ground. So what's happening is you're getting a little bit of weight on your feet and you're getting your shoulders to just pack back just a little bit versus keeping them just a hair forward. So I would look at what are your shoulders doing when you're doing that. It's not your feet on the ground, it's what your shoulders are doing. Because then if you notice, oh, my shoulders are still elevated and then I bring them down or, they're forward and then I'm pulling them back, whatever that small little thing is, see if you notice what that is, and then see if you can do it without touching your feet to the ground. And not only will you have better pull-ups more reliably, but you'll also be able to do it without that condition, and you'll have just more effective pull-ups all across the board. S. Lee, is it time worthy to learn the muscle up for building more muscle, or dips and pull-ups separately better to do? This is one of those debates. I'm sure a lot of people have opinions on it, but again, I don't think it really matters whatsoever. For me personally, I came to the world of calisthenics from a kind of just a bro style bodybuilding approach. And muscle ups are great and cool and all. But for me, it always just kind of looked like you were just doing a pull-up followed by a dip, followed by a pull-up. So I'm like, if I was in the gym on a weight machine, I'd be like, okay, 1 rep of a pull down, go over here, 1 rep of a dip press machine. Okay, one rep of a pull. I saw that someone doing that. I'm like, dude, do your pull-ups, then do your dips and be done with it. Why are you going back and forth like this? Of course, muscle ups aren't like that because there's not really quite the transition time. Plus also with muscle ups, it's the transition that's the hard part, which is great. There's a lot to learn from that, and there's a lot of control and stability and everything. But if the exercise is primarily about transitioning between pull-ups and dips, is that the best way to challenge our ability to do pull-ups and dips is the question I always have. So for me personally, it's always do pull-ups, do your dips, get really good at both. And if you get good enough at both, chances are the muscle up will just come as a free gain. As my mindful mover would talk about, Philip, is just you work on something and you get so good at it that you unlock the ability to do other things without even trying. And that's what I would do, is just focus on pull-ups, get really good at dips. And if some people, they're just, I got to do muscle ups. They've got this burning desire. If that's great, then do that too. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's exactly the same as the two, unless you get pretty good at that transition, in which case you're probably good. Let's see. I missed one from Michael. I don't want to leave you hanging, my friend. Drop weight daddy in the house. Hey, Matt, do you know what the largest sizes for RDP or GSC t-shirts are? I don't know. That's a good question. Teespring is the company I go through for that. And I'm assuming XXL would probably be on there. I mean, it's a apparel and merch company, so I'm assuming they probably have got to go pretty high. XXL would definitely be in there. I'd be surprised if it wasn't. Hey, Matt, thoughts on pike push-ups for shoulders then? Oh, yeah, definitely good. See, I like the pike push-up, not for shoulders specifically as far as strength, which is good, but for shoulder health. So a lot of times, myself included, for a lot of people, they push and you notice their shoulders, their arms are at an angle. They don't have that full vertical with the scapular pulled back and stuff. So this is one of the reasons why in yoga, downward dog is such a staple. is because it's so good for opening up the shoulders, for getting the back all stretched out, for really helping you engage that full shoulder flexion and stuff. And it's something I still struggle with myself to a degree. That type of tightness is going to hold you back in many ways, especially with pull-ups and any hanging exercise. To this day, I still have trouble even hanging unless I'm really mobile and stuff. So I really like the pike push-ups, not just like you get some shoulder benefits out of it, shoulder gains, awesome, wonderful. You can always make them harder by bringing your hands in a lot closer. But just for the health benefits of the upper body, and the stretching and everything is fantastic. Highly, highly recommend them for sure. Let's see what else we got. And I know, again, I missed a lot of questions. Just post them again, folks, so that way I can address them. S. Lee, when doing pull-ups, my biceps get a heavy pump. How can I activate my lats more? Because the only exercise that pump my lats are straight lat pull downs. Yeah, that's a very good one. I'm also a big fan of just the straight pull downs on like suspension straps and stuff. So here's the thing is, what are your shoulders doing differently? How are your shoulder blades different? Because fundamentally, there shouldn't be a difference there. There shouldn't be much of a difference, because with pull-ups, you have shoulder extension. With the straight arm, you have shoulder extension. From a functional standpoint, your shoulders and your lats should be doing exactly the same thing. So something is different. Somehow you're making something different. And I would bet money that your shoulders are slightly elevated and protracted forward. I mean, millimeters can make a difference. Like this to that can make all the difference in the world. So when you do that pull down, you're probably pulling your shoulder blades back, using those traps for more retraction, shoulder blades together and depressed. So notice if you got that going on, just so you got that feeling like, oh yeah, they're my shoulders, yeah. And have your shoulders in exactly the same position for the pull-up. And if necessary, regress the pull-up. Because whenever we go heavy enough, we just revert to whatever we've conditioned ourselves to do, even if it's a detrimental movement pattern. So go on like one of those weight-assisted pull-up machines, or you can do like jackknife pull-ups where your feet are on the ground or something. Make it easy enough so that way you can get your shoulders and everything in the same position. See if you can get those lats to light right up and then progress from there. BKS Gaming, I like the sloth, very cute. I primarily weight train, but I have been doing more weighted dips and pull-ups as well as working on handstands. Sometimes struggle with making sure to do these a couple times a week. Any advice? Well, I mean, one of the questions I would have is, why are you trying to do them that much? You know, if you're primarily weight lifting and you're using external loads, why do you want those to be more of a main exercise? Now, I would say, you know, great, wonderful, pull-ups and dips, like bread and butter, wonderful, but they don't have to be. They can be supplemental exercises. If you're more of like on a powerlifting routine, bench, squat, and dead kind of deal, and you use those as supplemental, I mean, you can still use them like every couple of weeks or a couple times a month or something, or just one of those days where you're like, oh man, I'm just not feeling the bench press today. I'm going to do some weighted dips instead. Or you're just like, I got to get a little bit more in the biceps. I'm going to get some pull-ups or something. You know, I would even go so far as to say, just do them whenever you like. You know, have the most important big stuff that you're doing with the weights, what you're tracking, what you're regulated with, what you're doing in your workout program, and then leave that stuff for those times you just feel like it, when you got the time and the energy and you're like, oh, you know, the bench press has got a queue that's 5 people deep over here at the gym tonight, but the dip bars are completely empty. I'll just do that instead of bench press today, kind of thing. I would say there's no reason why you need to totally regulate that if it's more of a supplemental exercise. Have fun with it. Keep it playful, that sort of thing, because you'll get gains from it either way. Oh, Ninja Rose with the awesome Bruce Lee and Wu-Tang avatar. That is really cool. That's one of the best ones I've seen yet. My friend and I are doing 5x5 20-kilogram decline ring push-ups for a part of our strength phase for the push chain. Oh, I like that. Do you do anything weighted on the rings? Do you weight anything yourself? Yeah, I haven't done it in a while, largely because my schedule these days has been an absolute cluster. And the ability to have access to weighted calisthenic stuff has just been non-existent. But you can see, well, you can't quite see the on the corner of the Kensui weight vest there. So that's how I weight my rows and push-ups. And the weight plates there down by the floor. And of course, my all-time favorite is just the ISO sling, just a strap. I would use with dumbbells, kettlebells, plates, that sort of thing. Because when it comes to weighted calisthenics, dips and pull-ups are king for the upper body. That's one of my all-time favorites. Just load up those hips and go to town. So I was actually thinking of doing that later today. It's like, man, I haven't done weighted dips in forever. Really kind of jonesing for that right now. And now you've definitely made me want to do it all the more because, oh boy, there is nothing like that as well. It just feels so good to get a weighted dip, nice, hard, and strong on the rings. Keeping that 5x5 program is also just fantastic. I mean, you just cannot go wrong with that. Going through a couple here on the backside. Hey, Matt, what is the best way to eat without tracking calories? I tracked for a long time. And I think it took a toll on my mental health. Yeah. Tracking calories and stuff, that's one of those things that's a good just kind of check-in habit. Like, I'm sure I'm, eating plenty if you're trying to gain, or I'm sure I'm eating as little. Just check it once in a while and be like, oh gosh, I'm really eating that much. That's a good reason to track, but it's for the most part not a good long-term thing. I used to be a long-term tracker. I know a lot of people who have been long-term trackers, and it's amazing the mind games we can play with ourselves to convince ourselves that we're actually eating more or less than we actually are. So again, it boils down to, what is your normal? What is your normal diet? What is your normal intake? Because we always want to base things off of what is your normal habit. What is your normal workout, normal diet, normal amount of pizza slices you eat, normal amount of chicken that you eat, normal. Because when you know what normal is, then you're good. It doesn't need to have a numerical number to it. How many calories do you eat? I don't know, but I know what normal is. Do you need to eat less? Well, I'm not getting any fatter, so probably not. Do you want to eat more? Well, okay, I know normal for me is 2 breakfast sandwiches in the morning. So I'll bump it up to 4, or I know, because sometimes, like I always say, I don't build muscle because I'm eating more. I eat more because I'm building muscle. I get that tapeworm effect going on. So I know I'm eating more because it's like, well, I just had lunch an hour ago and I'm back at that restaurant ordering another plate of chicken cacciatore or whatever, because that's not normal. I know it's more. And that's really what we need to know is, what is a number or anything like that? I don't care. Is it more than normal or less than normal? When you establish normal, then you can make decisions on more or less, and that's going to give you everything you need right there. And again, it depends on personal preference. Like some people, they love spreadsheets. They love MyFitnessPal. They're tracking. They got numbers. Me, I don't understand numbers for anything. I can't read a spreadsheet to save my life. I have trouble with a damn calendar. So that just doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for my brain. But I understand what normal is for me, and then I can understand when I change from normal. Oh, Nina and the Ninja is asking, what bike do you have? I know my bikes, and I can tell just by the blurry outline, it's a good. You almost said golden, which is correct. Sorry, not on topic, but I do have a top. Yeah, I addressed that one. So that, my friends, is a Yeti from local here in Colorado. It's well, I mean, no bikes are made in one place these days, but very local pride for that one. Brand new, got it like 2 weeks ago. That's why I have it out here. It's still in the shiny new bike phase, and I like to admire it when I walk out. I'm like, pretty Yeti, pretty mountain bike. It goes like a bat out of hell too. Gabriel asking a very good one here. Hey, Matt, do you think always doing the same variation of a movement, close grip chins, for example, could lead to injury or overuse, even if it's low fatigue? I don't think so. I mean, the body is built to be very resilient, extremely resilient. You could do anything a billion gazillion times and be perfectly fine. But when we have little misalignments and stuff like that, that's when things start to become problematic. So for the most part, don't worry about doing something a million times. I mean, hell, I ride that bike. I've been doing the pedaling motion with my feet for 30 some odd years. No problems there from just pedaling. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you suspect something's going on, take that as a learning opportunity to say, okay, what am I doing with that technique that's becoming problematic? and learn from that. Because otherwise, if you're like, oh, I'm doing this too much, and then you go to like neutral grip pull-ups, for example, shoulder width, then you're like, okay, this will be different, but what did you fix? Like what was wrong? Because if you don't know what's wrong, then that can potentially get worse and carry over to other exercises. And that's how big chronic stuff comes on about. Hey, Colin Drake's in the house. Good to see you, Colin. Speaking of biking. Let's see, what else can we do for you fine people coming here on a Saturday morning or afternoon now, depending on what part of the world you're in. Shout out to where you're from here. I love hearing from you folks, depending on where you're from in the world. I mean, I got people from all over the world here. I always get a kick out of that, of course. Let us see. Ninja is coming on. Do you think there's an argument to always keep legs in a volume phase? I have seen your calves and they're as big as my waist. Well, maybe not that big, or you've got a tiny waist. I'm guessing that's largely from mountain biking. I may be wrong. No, you're absolutely right. Sort of. But to just quickly answer, yes, always legs. Like to me, there's never a case to not train legs. Like I was one to make the mistake of saying like, I don't need to train legs. I'm a mountain biker. I don't need to train legs. And now I'm like, of course I train legs. I'm a mountain biker. Of course I train legs very reliably. By far, one of the most beneficial areas you can work for your health, your weight management, your performance, your ability to build muscle over, I mean, legs, strong legs. It should be always a priority in your training. But yeah, my calves did not grow until I started mountain bike racing. Racing being the key operative word there. But it wasn't just that, of course. It's also because when I was a younger kid, a friend of mine taught me how to be very explosive in Taekwondo, jumping. He's like, it's always in the toes. It's always in the toes. Be light on the toes. And I just developed the habit of being very ball of the foot dominant and calf dominant. And for the most part, I've always struggled to engage muscle. I mean, throughout my whole body. But my calves, because of that early upbringing, they were very good. That mind-muscle connection was very strong. So it took nothing for them to grow. And that's why they can still be the size they are with minimal effort, is because the connection's so strong. Denise coming on. So let's talking about what's the answer. Can build muscle while lose. I already answered that. You're late to the party, Denise. Of course you can. You already are. That's the bottom line. Absolutely. We're in the question and answer phase now. So for those who come late and stuff like that, what I always do is I take the audio of these podcasts where the main topic of the podcast is covered in the first 15 minutes. And I always put that on the Red Delta Project podcast on your podcast directories. So if you missed the first 15 minutes, subscribe to the Red Delta Project podcast and you'll always get that part through that. And that way you don't even have to watch my beautiful face every day. You can just listen to my soothing voice. Eddie Bauer. Hey, Eddie. It's good to see you again. Hey, Matt. How you, buddy? Very good. What is your suggestion on growing your legs at home? Same thing as growing them at the gym. No difference there. Your legs don't care where you are. Work them very hard. Of course, the squat movement pattern is the most fundamental movement pattern for lower body training. That's anything where your heels are getting closer to your hips. So that's lunges, squats, jumping, leg press, leg extensions, hamstring curls. I mean, everything where your heels are getting closer to your hips is working your legs. But yeah, use whatever you like. Usually at home, though, I think a big part of it is when you go to the gym, you get a lot of different pieces of equipment. And that equipment gives the illusion of variety. This is something that I've become more aware of with several friends of mine. We've built big commercial gyms and small gyms and stuff like that. And there's this weird thing that happens when you start building a gym, maybe not so much a home gym, but a commercial gym, because when you think, what do people want? For some reason, gym managers think people want a million different ways to do everything. One of the gyms I worked at, I mean, this is telling, was a hammer strength gym. It was literally called Hammer Fit. And hammer strength gym, the leverage machines and stuff, that's all the whole gym was, just life fitness and hammer strength and stuff. And about a year after we got all set up and rocking, and I thought it was like an equipment mecca. I was like, oh, this is the most beautiful gym in the world. I love this place. We had a representative from Life Fitness come through to kind of give us the tour and make sure we knew the equipment and stuff. And even he was like, what the hell is wrong with you people? You have 4 different machines that all do the same thing. And he's like, why? It's his job to sell equipment to us. And he was saying, you've wasted half of your budget on useless machines. So that was kind of, and it's weird whenever you're setting up a gym, it's very unusual how people are like, okay, we need 15 different bicep curl machines. It's like, why? How many different ways do you need to bend your elbow? So that's the thing with legs, is I think a lot of people think you need a lot of different types of exercises and ways to work your legs, and you don't. Pick a squatting movement pattern. Lunges and squats are pretty much one of the standard, and any variation you can work your legs with, just go with that, and you'll be good to go. Another creatine question, thoughts on creatine? Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things of try it and see. I had a buddy who was I almost said a chemist. It wasn't a chemist. He was a product engineer in the supplement company. He basically created the formulas for a lot of these things. And he was like, yeah, creatine's pretty much the population. He's like, I don't know why, but like 30% of people, just nothing whatsoever. About a third have great response to it, and about a third are just meh. And I was asking him about that because I take creatine from time to time and I don't notice a damn thing. I could just take sugar pills. He's like, yeah, you're probably in just that bottom third. So you just got to try it. But I mean, hell, it's researched up the wazoo. It's safer than water practically at this point. And of course, creatine, it technically is, it's a supplement because we already get it. Red meat is a good source. I think beans and leafy greens. Don't hold me to that. I want to say that, but I don't know where I'm getting that from. But I mean, we get it already in food. And of course, our body just synthesizes it automatically. So you don't need it. It's not like you're getting something extra that you don't get otherwise. You're just getting it faster than you may usually have. And for some people, that can make the difference in just getting an extra rep. And that extra rep can build up over time. Good calf raise extra. Question from Pedro, is it possible to grow calves with just calf raises even though bad genetics? That's pretty much about the best way to grow calves. Absolutely. Calf raise city, baby. The thing with calves is you got to have a very high pain tolerance for them. And I'm one of those crazy people who just loves to feel a muscle feel like it's about to rip from the bone. So I have that advantage. I mean, one of the best calf things I do is here in the Rockies, when we ride, especially front range here, you're going up or down. There's no flat out in the Rocky Mountains. You're going up or you're going down. And one of the best things you can do is just downhill and you're on the balls of your feet, hips are off the saddle kind of thing. I was riding in Oregon with a friend of mine, and I think we spent nearly 2.5 hours going downhill on this one trail. 2 hours of calf work. And I got off and I was like, oh, mother of God. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to dorsiflex my feet again because my calves were basically working really hard for 2 straight hours. So yeah, it's along those lines. So whatever you think is a normal calf exercise, calf routine, double it. And we'll see, we'll go with that one. Because usually people grossly undertrain their calves. Good question here. Oh, this is a classic question. Is a deadlift considered a leg exercise? Oh boy, sure. Why not? So here's actually an interesting thing that I got on a conversation streak on social media where people were asking about the farmer's carry, and they were saying, is it good for the chest? Is it good for this muscle? Good for that muscle? Because they were saying, a lot of people say farmer's carry works the whole body kind of thing. And I was like, no, it's not going to get your chest big, like, dips and pushups and kind of thing. But here's the thing is, the big takeaway from the conversation is there's a very big difference between working a muscle and using a muscle. Okay, working a muscle is like those calves where it's like they feel like they're just going to blow up. They're working, you're taking them and saying, I need you to work harder, and they're begging for mercy. That's working a muscle. Versus using a muscle, it's like, yeah, it's on. I feel it working. You put the weight down, you're like, yeah, felt the hamstrings a bit. Yeah, they were working. That's using a muscle. Now, there's benefits, of course, to using a muscle. There's a stimulus no matter what you do with the muscle. But for me, if someone's like, can you consider this a leg exercise, hamstring, a back exercise? You got to feel it screaming bloody murder, like really, really working Otherwise, it's just using the muscle. So the question for you is, when you do deadlifts, do you feel your hamstrings working, like really working, or do you feel like it's all in your back? If that's the case, I would consider more of a back exercise. But if you're like, oh my God, my hamstrings are just on sore for days and really crazy, then I would do that. And if you want to turn more into hamstring, I usually am much more of a fan of the Romanian deadlift variation, taking the knee a little bit out of it for that hip extensions aspect. That's definitely a lot more hamstring dominant in many, many cases. Oh, very good, Mike. Thank you. Creatine is found in meat, fish, and dairy products. Body makes it too. Dairy, that was what I was thinking of as well. Thank you very much for the input there, Mike. Lee asking, Red Alcavallo, stretching your boundaries, if so, is a good complement to convict conditioning exercises? Absolutely. Al and I were talking about it when it came out, in fact. Yes, very good compliment. And here's the thing, is that book was written at a time when a lot of people were putting out books, and it's like, here's a million exercises that you could do, and people kind of got overwhelmed from it. And one of the magic things about convict conditioning, what makes it so good, is that Paul Wade was saying, here, 6 exercises, 6 basic moves. Because up until then, like, I would pick up a bodyweight book, like Stephen Lowe's Overcoming Gravity or something. It's like, here's a million different exercises, or here's a weight machine that does 300 different exercises. We don't need more. We just need to focus on the key fundamentals. And so when we approach stretching your boundaries, take 3 exercises. I think he's got some good routines in the book too that are like 4 exercises, 5 at the most. Keep it really, really, really simple. Target a few areas that you want to make some progress on, like maybe your hips or something, and just focus on that. Go deep, not broad, in other words, with those, because there's a ton of great exercises in that. But you don't need to, nor should you do most of them. Probably you're going to find just a few good cherries that are going to be the sweetest for your gains. Oh, cute doggy, chilled, happy doggo with the babushka on. Very cute. God, it's been an hour already. Holy, every week this thing goes by so fast. Do you have any experience with shoulder impingement? If so, any advices? Not impingement particularly, but certainly rough shoulders. Shoulder impingement, again, is one of those things where once there's damage, you're limited to what you can do. So let pain be your guide. And a lot of times, chronic elevation and protraction is to blame. So make sure your shoulders are packed down as much, and pretty much just keep the elbows below the shoulder joint for most of your exercises and let it heal. Because even if you're like, oh, overhead presses, they're perfectly fine, they shouldn't be bad. Well, once you have an injury like the inflammation of the tendon that causes the impingement, then it's a bad exercise because you're hurt, you're injured. So let pain be your guide, give it plenty of time to heal, and then come back to it after the fact. All right, just a couple more here. S. Lee, I have a skinny fat body, but the last year I've been getting leaner and more muscled. Congratulations. But still I have a belly, no 6-pack, but my upper body is quite lean. What can I do? Yeah, same thing. Just keep on tracking, man. Keep on trucking. You're doing exactly what you need to do. And welcome to the male gender, because that's what we guys typically do. We put it right in our belly. So that's largely just a genetic thing. Where do you store body fat? Years ago I had a ultrasound body fat test. It's really, really cool. And actually, I meant to mention that at the beginning because it showed literally the layers of fat and adipose tissue and the layers of muscle underneath and how they're like a layer cake. It's pretty cool to watch. And they were like, yep, you're just as lean as you were last year, except your belly. You've got 3 millimeters more of adipose tissue on your belly. I'm like, yep, that's being a guy. We put fat right in our belly. So yeah, you have more on your belly because that's where you put it. So you still have more fat to lose is the bottom line. Same thing. You're just right on track. You just keep on trucking. Steve Calamars. Love the tricep shot, man. Hey, Matt, any thoughts on the eccentric option of cinder blocks over parallettes? Oh, or economic, sorry, not eccentric. Economic parallettes for movements like deficit pushups, deficit when hypertrophy is the goal. I like that. I like that idea. Cinder blocks are badass too. Believe it or not, I mean, years ago, long before Red Delta Project, maybe even during the Fit Rebel days, I actually created a cinder block workout program. I had a whole method on how you can condition the cinder block so it doesn't create a mess in the room and makes it stronger. And I actually had a spreadsheet back when I could do spreadsheets, of over 300 exercises you could do with cinder blocks. They're strong, they're tough. Yeah, bottom line, I think you're on definitely good. Awesome. Just make sure for the edges. Edges on cinder blocks can really, I mean, they're like razor blades when you're moving. You're doing push-ups and you get it to scrape against your chest or something. So what I do, and you need to wear goggles when you do this because chips fly all over the place, but you take a hammer and you gently tap the edges of the cinder block, and that rounds the edge of the cinder block. So it's a little bit easier on the hands and anything that you might come in contact with. What I actually did was I wrapped the whole cinder block in hockey tape. And that kept it from getting little particles everywhere and stuff. And yeah, we had a couple cinder blocks like that lasted years in the gym, and they're fun to work with. So yeah, I think it's awesome. But condition the block, as I would say, is get rid of those sharp edges and wrap it in tape or something like that. Just makes it a lot easier, safer to work with. Carlo with the cute kitty cat for the avatar. Jungle Panther. I have a low body fat percentage, but how can I get my bicep veins to show? A little bit more, again, of a genetic thing, kind of. Make sure that you are, I mean, this is, you know, like you're seeing this is just lighting here. You know, I got a light right there, and I've got the cross light from the window. So, you know, if I went to a different room, it wouldn't see it at all. So a lot of times it's just, I mean, I'm drinking caffeine, so that's part of it. And also just make your biceps bigger, you know, so the vein is there. And the more your biceps get bigger, the more the veins, the arteries kind of press against the skin, if it's there. You know, if you just genetically built where it's there, but if it's kind of like more over to the side, no, it's not. It's just not going to happen because there's just more fat here and there's less bicep muscle here. So to a large degree, it's genetic is basically what I'm saying. Carlo, don't leave. No. I only see about 5 questions at a time. Let's see what we can do to wrap things on up. Let's see here. Oh, let's finish with this one. This one's a good one. Hey, Matt, can I avoid knee pain during squats? So once again, as always, pain is Mother Nature's way of telling us we're screwing something up. So first and foremost is make sure there's not just a structural damage, like arthritis, torn ligament, something like that. Probably not, but sometimes when people have joint pain, it is because something in there is broken or damaged or something, in which case there's not a damn thing I can do for you. You need to go see a doctor. So if you suspect it might be something like that, seek a health professional to just rule that out. Or if it is that issue, get it taken care of. The other thing, though, is a lot of times pain around a joint means a muscle somewhere isn't doing its job. So think of this way, like in the martial arts, right? We got all sorts of joint locks and arm bars and everything like that. And the whole point of that is to put stress into a joint while putting the arm or something in a position where they can't tense up or create enough leverage against the pressing motion to dissipate that stress. So pain in a knee usually means your glutes and your hamstrings aren't doing their job. They're not tightened, they're not engaged enough, or you don't have enough motion in your hips. So I would look at that first. Try doing something that engages your glutes and hamstrings, some hip extension, kettlebell swings, hip bridges, GHDs, where you've got hip extension. Turn your glutes and hamstrings on first, then go to your squats. See if that helps a little bit. Because your knees, believe it or not, I mean, I know I've had chronic knee issues since I was like 12, and it's finally gotten a lot better. But a lot of times when we have bad joints, we think of that they're like fragile, like, oh, I don't want to do anything. Your joints should be able to take a mountain of abuse, like punishing abuse, and come back smiling. So it's not a case of the joint is bad. Something else is going on. One more from Ninja, just because I love that avatar. You're always the guy to keep us inspired. Thank you very much. Calisthenics moves, fitness facts, very good. The high progress in there. Who inspires you and makes you want to push yourself after all these years of training? To be perfectly honest with you, I was never much of a follower or admirer of other people. Like people all the time, they talk about folks on Line and other influencers, and I have no idea who they're talking about. It's funny you should mention those guys, because those are like 3 people I'm aware of online who do body weight exercise, and they're awesome. But funny enough, Bruce Lee was always someone I looked to, not because he could kick ass on a movie screen or anything like that, but because he was always a man of principle. He was someone who had a very fundamental approach and understanding of the martial arts, and he basically was always the foundation of how Red Delta Project got built. I've got every book on Bruce Lee on that bookshelf back there. Tao of Jeet Kune Do, Striking Thoughts, you name it, I've read it cover to cover. Also, the Bruce Lee podcast is fantastic as well for that sort of thing. They've got a new episode or a new season coming out. Shannon Lee just put out the trailer the other day. So I would say Bruce was a big fan and inspiration as my head honcho right there. A couple quick ones right here. What do you do for rounded shoulders? Don't round them. I know, bad answer, but seriously, it's about being aware of packing them down and back. I always give that exercise to people, practicing this several times a day to just pack the shoulders, getting used to that and getting those shoulders moving and packed during your workouts. Quick one, Carlo, how do you naturally boost testosterone? Again, the big things I talked about. Eat plenty of good food, particularly with a bit of cholesterol sources like eggs and stuff. I've heard say for a lot of people, just going off of secondhand knowledge, sleep. Sleep is by far your most important variable. Manage stress. I'm not saying you've got to be on cloud 9 all the time, but chronic stress is a killer of that sort of thing. And strength train. Lift heavy, my friends. Lift heavy. I don't care what that is. Heavy deadlift, heavy dips, 1-arm push-ups, whatever it is. But lift well, my friends. And then following up with that, thoughts on steroids. I'm not going to use it though. So steroids, I know enough to know I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. Like, steroids can be a messy, really weird area. I've known guys who have done steroids and it just destroys their physique. He's like, dude, I know long haul truck drivers who look better than you. It's like, well, it looked great for 6 months and then you look like, ugh. Plus, there's so many different kinds. There's so many different stacks and strategies. You go on to, back in the day when they had like, message boards and stuff on steroids. People spent more attention trying to figure out how to effectively take drugs than they did on how to effectively eat and exercise. That's how complicated it can be. So I'm just like, that's one more headache I don't need, kind of thing. And for what? Like, so I get a few more likes on social media or something. And there's 2 phases to it. Some people are like, it is going to destroy your health, and other people, it's harmless. It's of course in the middle. Who knows? it could be perfectly harmless depending on if you know what you're doing. If you do it the safe way, chances are you won't, kind of thing. I just stay away from it. It's just not worth it. I'd rather not do that sort of thing. And the only other thing I would say is, like, I don't care if people do steroids. It's perfectly, that's their choice and everything. But what does irk me is when someone is all juiced up and they're like, it's all because of my protein shake you can get for $19.95. I'm like, fuck you, dude. Like, if your results are 90% because you're on the sauce and you're trying to sell your social media, you're trying to sell products and stuff and say it's because of that, to me, you're just a flat out crook. That's bait and switch. There's no difference to that. You're a scam artist, pure and simple. If you come out and be like, I do steroids, this is how much I think it helped to this physique, but this protein powder is definitely what I recommend, totally fine. Great, wonderful. That's open and honest. When you're deceitful, you should be fined or thrown in jail, just because you're throwing people for a loop. Flat feet, I get this one quite a bit. No idea, honestly. This is something I should probably look into because I don't know anything about flat feet. But podiatrists should be able to answer questions there for you. Thoughts on weighted calisthenics from Eddie Bauer. I actually had the idea to start writing a book on this the other day. So, but basically weight, I like it, but I don't think it's anything special because you're just putting resistance on the body, just like any other strength training. But some people find it's easier. Here's the big thing that you should know about weighted calisthenics. The weight doesn't make you stronger. Trying to do the technique well with the weight makes you stronger. So if you do pull-ups and you're like, okay, this is my technique and this is how high I get and this is how well I do them and stuff, then you add 30 pounds onto you. That 30 pounds doesn't automatically magically make the exercise more effective. Because if you're doing worse technique, worse range of motion, you're flopping around like a fish, then you've regressed. You've regressed in order to do that. You're not building strength, you're building compensation. So the challenge is, great, you can do 10 pull-ups with that range of motion and technique. Now, can you do them that way with 20 pounds or 30 pounds on you? That's what the purpose of the weight is actually doing, is can you do it with this? Have you used a sissy squat bench before? Do you like using them or prefer going without? I haven't used it in a long time just because we don't have one in the area. And I'd like to try them again because I love sissy squats. I think they're just so satisfying. Oh my gosh, love them to death. But unfortunately, I have a foot injury that my big toe doesn't bend back very far on my right foot, which kind of limits the pressure I can put into the balls of my feet at the bottom of a sissy squat. It's okay usually, and if I wear like work boots, it's fine. But the sissy squat bench would, of course, get around that sort of thing. But yeah, I would imagine it's very good. How many pull-ups can you do? All of them. What kind? That's always the question. Is I could do 1,000 of them if I make them easy enough. You know, I could do one if I make it hard enough. Okay. I got to get going here, folks. But I can't stop myself. I love talking to you, folks. I really love the fact that you guys are willing to spend some time with me here on a Saturday and come and say hi, me in my little corner here of the internet. Is it okay to do dumbbell press an exercise ball instead of a bench? Technically, yes. It's fine. However, they're not supposed to pop, but they do. And I have known and seen horror stories of balls popping on people. And when that happens, people go to the hospital. So it's one of those things I just don't do it. Like, even if the chance is so remotely small, there's no real benefit to it. It is kind of nice to just kind of roll back and get into the dumbbell position and stuff, but I don't recommend it just because if that ball bursts, and I know it's not supposed to, but they do, you're going to get very hurt from that sort of thing. What is mind-muscle connection? Why is it important? Oh, this one's a deep one, but basically, how well can you turn on your muscles? So this is the thing that a lot of people don't understand, is that exercise is 90% here. Your muscles are the end product, the end result. So the analogy I always give is your nervous system is the engine and transmission, and your muscles are the wheels. So if you wanted to make a faster car, you had a race car or something, like, I need this car to be faster. Do you put all of your money into just better wheels and all of your attention, wheels? What about the engine? Don't need to worry about the engine. You know, it just goes, wheels. That's what happens when we do strength training. That's your wheel. Muscle is actually pretty simple. It's your mental, your nervous system, central nervous system, peripheral nervous system that drives your muscles. So your conditioning of that nervous system is incredibly important. That's why I wrote the book, Overcoming Isometrics, because isometrics is, in my opinion, by far the best way to condition that nervous system in order to use your muscles better. And then once you do that, conditioning and making them stronger is just as easy as falling off a bridge. Small bridge, hopefully. How do you make muscles on each side equal in strength and size by doing calisthenics? Don't worry about it. I just put out a video on my YouTube channel about that. Muscle differences between right and left side are always going to be there to some degree. It's perfectly normal. It's natural. Symmetry is one of those things. It's kind of like trying to balance on one foot on a end of a 10-foot post. If you have it, you have it for a very brief period of time. But doing unilateral exercises, you know, is a good way to keep things relatively in balance. You know, that way you can manage, like, okay, this is how push-ups feel on one side, push-ups feel on the other. You can kind of get them to be about the same. That's usually the best way to go about it. Last but not least, favorite exercise for quads and hamstrings. Quads, sissy squats, no comparison. The king in my book, and hamstrings, are TRX hamstring curls, or suspension strap hamstring curls. Much prefer on my NOSC trainer there for sure. Those are my best ways to go after those sort of things. What was this one here? Any tips for speeding up regeneration after a test strain? Yeah, rest and sleep. Rest and sleep. Healing is one of those things. Your body does it automatically. You just got to get out of the way. You just got to stop trying to hurt it with, I'm going to do another 1,000 push-ups today kind of thing. Rest and sleep, my friend. Rest and sleep. Let pain be your guide. Work around the injury. Lexicon, my right shoulder has less range of motion when I do scapular pulls. been training for weeks and it takes forever. So think of where are you moving though? Shoulder blades move many different ways. So are you protracted? Because like my shoulder has less range here than if I'm retracted and I've got a lot more range there. See if you got a little protraction on that side. That might be limiting your range, not because you're lacking flexibility. It's just you've got a slight misalignment there. All right, folks, I got to run to Best Buy and still try and figure out some of my tech issues here. But thank you so much for coming on. Don't forget, sponsor for this episode, Nosk Suspension Trainers. They're one of the most affordable setups, best design and quality design on the internet. That's why they're pretty much the only suspension setups that I use. And check them out down below in the link. Much appreciated there, as well as all the books I mentioned, like Overcoming Isometrics and stuff down below in the description as well. We'll be doing this again next week. Don't forget, if you want to reach out and get in touch with me or ask questions, Red Delta Project's Instagram channel is the way to do that as well. So I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you very much. Till then, be fit and live free.